Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the eastern border. Some of our plans did not materialize because I was in horrible pain for past 2 days and still am. And let me remind you, this is the anniversary of Prigozhin's march towards Moscow. And the moment where I actually met Evit's parents for the first time ever. So, fun times, biggest celebration in Latvia ever today because, again, it's our midsummer, which is important to us and which we focus on. But I wanted to bring you at least an episode and updates, mostly about from the Z channels because the front's been a bit static lately. But I understood that for some reason you guys seem to enjoy these episodes very much, where I just focus on what the Z channels are saying. I've gotten a lot of good responses on this one, and I thought that it's important to give you proper news from these other side of the war to focus on what our enemy is saying. And it's interesting because they reveal a lot about the war that is not usually known in the whole media space. So here we go. This episode is not going to be that long, but, it's necessary, and I hope that you'll enjoy it because I'm off after my horrible pain to do some bit of relaxing or something. But I just needed to get the job done first. So here we go. See, the first thing in the main news in the whole Z space, as I like to call it, is Vladimir Putin's successful visit to North Korea. Comrade Kim, as these Russian Z authors believe, for the most part, except Maxim Kalashnikov, but we'll get to him because he's very skeptical about this, believe that he will manage to save this Russian world concept. Now, we've spoken about Putin's address to the North Korean people in the previous episode about what it means and how he lies about all this, but the reaction to this has been just amazing. Quote, DPRK is the only Soviet investment that has justified itself. I have already written about it, but as they say, it is not a sin to repeat it. It would not be an exaggeration to say we thank you to our Korean comrades for their help. More shells, good and different from what we use normally. Well, and missiles too. This is Voyenkor Z. Yevchenko. Topa Z and Española, a guy that lives in Spain, actually, as a Russian immigrant, says, quote, Putin is the dearest friend of the Korean people, and Russia is the most honest associate. The head of the DPRK, Kim Jong-un, really knows his, allies. Ramzai says the following and reacts to this the following way, quote, so what can Russia get from the new treaty? There are also quite specific resources that we need today for a speedy victory in Ukraine. Our army needs a sharp increase in its strike capabilities. First of all, heavy artillery, MLRS, ammunition, the appearance of which can finally turn the situation on the front. We also need small air defense, in air quotes, high-speed, small-caliber artillery and machine gun systems, light SAMs, of which the Korean army has a huge number of, which can strengthen the army and local air defense. The threat of North Korean volunteers at the front may also become Russia's trump card. This may well cool the fervor of NATO, which is discussing increasing its participation in the war in Ukraine. For the Korean army, such participation will be a unique opportunity to gain real combat experience in a war with American-style army against American and NATO weapons and to test its tactical and strategic developments on the battlefield. Cost News says, quote, for example, the ban on working abroad. Why should we restrict both the DPRK and ourselves in this? Korean guest workers, for example, are hard-working and non-conflict, cheap labor. They will not create enclaves with diasporas. And what we need from North Korea is quite obvious. With the reserves and production capacity, why don't we invite North Korea to the CSTO? That's the defense organization that Moscow runs, which, gets in fights only with itself, where Armenia and Azerbaijan, for example, is fighting. He continues, the organization will gain a lot of weight. There are 1,200,000 soldiers in the Korean People's Army, and North Korea's defense industry covers almost all of the country's military needs. So let me remind you that this also angers South Korea, which was then more ready to help Ukraine directly, which is a nice thing for us. So, they're trying to pull out some positives from this one. And the best post about this was the following from Sanctuary number 8 channel, quote, liberals, including the systemic ones, and by liberals he here means the chairman of Russia's National Bank, Solovyov, and all these other people, because, well, people in Russia, they have a very vague idea of actual liberalism, obviously, but this is what they sell as one. So, carrying on. Liberals, including the systemic ones, said that the USSR was one continuous military camp, and that's bad. Full cycle production of general military armaments. Yuck. Especially nobody needs huge arsenals of shells that do nothing but burn and explode. A lot of right-wingers, especially monarchists, have said socialism is terrible, and the DPRK is a real dictatorship. And so on, the, quote, war determining the future of Great Russia. To quote from the philosopher Ilyin, and for the Russian world, we're being seriously pulled from falling to the bottom by a socialist country, yes, a red dictatorship with a full cycle of production of great general military armaments, especially projectiles. And that's cool. Well, yeah, cool when you have to literally buy stuff from North Korea, of all places, and, you know, extorting the virtues and values of being under a very red, very personal dictatorship. Just amazing. Meanwhile, to focus on why they actually need North Korea right now, we have Z channel Juncker, who explains in detail how the Russian offensive is organized. Not only in the Kharkiv region, but he tells about the main problem: supplies, consolidation, and holding of positions. All this is not taken into account of plans, only the assault itself. Quote, based on the experience of offensive operations as well as tactical level battles, there is a common problem, namely the insufficiency, absence, and preparedness of the grouping of consolidation and grouping of success development, building up efforts. What usually happens? Assault units seize the object of attack, the designated boundaries and positions. They consolidate on their occupied positions, repulse an enemy counterattack. Further, if the situation develops favorably, they hold the boundary or do not withdraw from it to initial positions. The enemy retreats to prepared positions to a depth of about 300 meters to 1 kilometer, and as a rule by the forces of the reserves that came up after fire training on the lost positions counterattacks. In any case, the tactical zone of the enemy's defense is not broken through, but only pushed to the depth of companies, platoons of the first echelon. At the same time, this result is always given at the cost of heavy losses and efforts. To continue, offensive actions have started all over again. After 2 or 3 assaults, units lose the ability to conduct assault actions and require restoration of combat capability. Thus, any deep penetration into the enemy's defense is out of the question. Why does this happen? In addition to other factors, it's a consequence of the fact that, as it seems to the author here, and witnessed by this author on many occasions, this detailed planning of the offensive battle occurs only up to the stage of mastery of the object of attack by the assault units. The issues of reliable consolidation, development of success, and observation, which he quotes specifically and puts in large all caps, of units of the occupied lines are erroneously considered secondary. This approach is the characteristic of tactical commanders and staffs. As a result, assault groups that have successfully accomplished the combat task of capturing the object of attack often have to abandon their captured positions only because ammunition has run out and its replenishment has not been thought through. There is no one to evacuate the wounded, and this task has to be performed by the assault troops. Lost assault troops are not able to repel the enemy counterattack. Flanks are not secured. And this whole fire attack in the interest of securing and repelling the counterattack is not carried out, or it is insufficient. And then, this is what the Juncker says. And further on, there's more comments on this situation. So far, the only place where this issue was concerned was the breakthrough of Avdiivka. I will not argue long about the fact that the stormers are overloaded, that there should be a counter-storm in reserve. That's saving even in one of these places you can be left without a battalion. And the most important point here is, why is this happening? My guess is, well, the author's guess, is that the system of reports and punishments. There are no penalties in the Russian army for a poorly prepared offensive. No one knows at what level the failure occurred, what task the senior commander set, and what funds were allocated. At most, they'll find the company commander guilty. But the commander of the squadron has nothing to lose in this war. He doesn't expect to see it end anyway. The reporting system, the second root of the problem. Once we heard that the stormtroopers were still crawling into the village of Staroye Perdyshestvo, and the commander was already rushing to the headquarters to report on the successes. Simply put, they report not about the quality of combat work done, but about each landing separately. The commander took the spot, well done, take the medal. If he didn't, well, fake it. It is as if a mechanic of auto mechanics was evaluated not for the results of major repairs, but for each unscrewed bolt. At the end, we have what we have. Summarizes the reasoning of this author of this channel, Zizov Z. But the channels, they're fighting amongst themselves too, you know. In a fight to the death, I would even say, the small but vicious military channel Dupichok Designer and the prominent so-called volunteer channel Two Majors. Dupichok accuses the majors of cowardice. Allegedly, they supplied the military with substandard radio combat systems costing dozens of lives. The conflict has been developing for the last week, and today the author of the channel published an announcement. He allegedly plans to post an investigation into the activities of the majors. Good luck, as they say, to both sides. So our two majors, in the person of Dmitry and Yekaterina Korzin, are short of money. And although Dmitry has closed the sole proprietorship and now will quite officially and legally take 20% of the fees collected of 10 million for Mavics, 2 million in his pocket for organizational and administrative needs, that is to buy Mavics on Avito, which is a Russian site where you basically, kind of like Craigslist, and to buy Mavics there and send them to the special military operation. And to make more money, you need to press on emotions. You need to post an almost 5-minute video with videos and photos of the corpses of our soldiers with sad music and comments of a woman in her best age to donate to the needs of our boys. Two majors, you are the most natural corpse eaters. You make money on the death of a Russian soldier, and I really hope that the consequences will not be long in coming, and even insurance in the form of an initial fund will not help you. In the evening, an article with a detailed analysis of another lie from the majors will be posted. This is what the designer Dupichok said. Another thing that the Z channels kind of discussed was the ATACMS strike on Rostov region. Again, I'll just post what the two mayors say here because they are a major channel. The ATACMS strike on the Rostov region, which our comrades write about, testifies to the use of heavy NATO weapons on Russian regions, in no way connected with the Russian army offensive in the Kharkov direction. The political statements of Pentagon functionaries have nothing to do with the reality on the front. Rosgvardeyets posted the following. Well, here comes the beginning of the use of long-range weapons in our rear territory. All of this is expected. The only question is what percentage of the missiles will be able to intercept. One way or another, the enemy overloads the air defense, so some part of the missiles get through. Now they'll also receive F-16s, which will give us additional opportunities which will give them the additional opportunities to strike at our territories and facilities. And this is by Rosgvardeyets. But the biggest fun thing, but we'll get to the humor part of all this, but one of the biggest interesting things is that for 2 days now, 2 days, the Z channels are beating themselves up over the decision of the St. Petersburg authorities, where the Russian Olympic Committee is located, to award cash payments to Russian athletes who will take part in the 2024 Olympics. And this is truly fun event, listening to them and reading them just be crying about all this stuff. But while we're at it, a bit of my own shilling is necessary. So, like usual, I don't have much time right now as I'm recording this, as I'm supposed to slowly go to the countryside with my horrible back pain. We'll see if that happens, but, we'll manage. However, I'd just like to say that if you like this content, then please subscribe to patreon.com/theeasternborder and become our patrons, or go to theeasternborder.lv and click the donate button there. There we'll also have our links to our Discord page, where events sometimes happen. Well, they'll happen more, usually. And then there's also the link to our merch store, where you can buy all the t-shirts that you want and everything of that sort. T-shirts, caps, everything, which is just, a nice thing. And also we're selling Club of Angry Patriots stuff, the proceeds of which go to Ukrainian army. Okay, but now when that's over, let's get back to what the Z articles are writing about the whole situation with the 2024 Olympics. 13th, the kind of a weird, ultra evil patriotic channel of Russia it was a criminal who shot a few people, and one of those guys who are basically contracted to the front lines straight from the prisons writes the following, quote, "While we are literally collecting pennies here to help the front with the whole country, at the same time the faggots are paying traitors. The authorities of St. Petersburg will pay 5 million rubles to gold medalists of the Olympics in Paris, 2.5 million rubles to silver medalists, and 1.5 million rubles to bronze medalists. A draft resolution of the city administration has been published on the website. Athletes who took places from the 4th to the 6th will also receive bonuses. For the 4th place is entitled to 678,000 rubles, for the 5th, 452,000 rubles, for the 6th, 339,000 rubles. They're going to go there, act like neutral cocksuckers, come home, and they got the cash. All of you should be put in trenches, and the sooner the better." This is the 13th. Then we have Zhizhov Ze, who's also a bit angry about this whole situation. St. Petersburg wants to pay bonuses to athletes who will take prizes at the Olympics in France. Let me remind you that the athletes in Paris perform without a flag and an anthem. At the same time, in Belgorod, the entrances of residential buildings are being stacked with French-guided bombs. And a little closer to Kharkov, Russian guys under the flag of Russia are laying down their lives on the altar of the fatherland. But St. Petersburg apparently does not care much about the problems of Belgorod and the honor of the flag. Zergulio writes, and what is especially important, only those who did not speak out in favor of the special military operation are allowed to participate in the Olympics. Even so, the International Olympic Committee, at its discretion, can reconsider athletes' eligibility at any time it sees fit. Moskaikov writes, I wonder how many millions the St. Petersburg authorities would pay if they just went and kissed Macron's ass. I take it all the St. Petersburg mobilized have 3 sets of Ratniks, Thermax, collimatoric aims, PBS in limited quantities, and a squadron of Mavics laying behind everyone. Their families have no need of anything and are surrounded by a host of social workers. But even so, I don't understand how one can encourage betrayal of the motherland. Blue Z Beard writes, and also a jar of black caviar and a ticket into the native places of the patriotic governor, to the resorts of the Azerbaijan region. After all, look how interesting it turns out. The decision of the local authorities turns out to be more important than the national course, honor and dignity of the country. And this carries on. They're really incensed of this. At the same time, they show their own paradoxical views on life and everything, because they also have decided to comment a bit on the Israeli war. See, on the one hand, that authors consistently take the most anti-Israel position humanly possible, but on the other hand, for some reason, and I'm being super snarky here, they're not happy at all about Palestinian quote-unquote refugees in Russia, because again, they are all horribly racist, and they all just, they don't understand that what they're doing is super Nazi themselves, but not like they care. Operation Z writes, quote, don't you have enough migrants? Get some more. An entertaining government decree has appeared in which it is reported that Russia will accept 43,000 Palestinian refugees. Soldier of Fortune writes, quote, the Russian government plans to allocate more than 57.6 million rubles to the Ministry of Emergency Situations for them, and the cost of accommodation and food are budgeted at 1,328 rubles per person per day. At the same time, the term of accommodation of Palestinian refugees is not more than 6 months. At the moment, only about 1,000 Palestinian refugees have arrived in the Russian Federation. That is just insane. Then we have 13th, which, writes in very typical Z faction and everything. His utter craziness just really shows the whole insanity of the situation. Fucking devils, what do you call them? Your whores have nowhere to spend your money? I'll give you a hint. Resettle the regions of border regions. Belgorod region, Donetsk People's Republic, give them safe housing. Help the residents of Donbas. But why do we need this terrorist rabble in our country? Don't you bitches have enough terrorist attacks or crimes committed by migrants? Start helping your own people at least. Political cuckolds. Just amazing stuff. And for its value, the Z publication Ria Katyusha is, as usual, at the same time as all of this is happening, is outraged, once again, by the fact that Russian citizens are not interested in the war, and that the Russian elite is so demonstratively ignoring the war. And why do the Russian military men die at the front, the author asks. This question is illustrated by an outraged video message from a military man who demands deportation of all participants of the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. Quote, for some reason, the capital scum decided that the madhouse that was going on at the Economic Forum in the trenches where fighters are sitting, whom, as Vladimir Vladimirovich said, the authorities love, caused a shock. We heard everything that the fighters said in Kremenia and Belgorod region. We heard about it from under Chasy Yar, from Kherson region. People really ceased to understand why they went to ruin their health, their lives, their future, if such things are happening in the rear. For the sake of 200,000, which you still get, which you have to try hard to get, and when it happens, nobody knows, you only buy yourself medicine. Toss together your money with others for a Mavic and on some radio communications, because the volunteers are super tired and do not have the time for all of this. For the sake of a grandmother carrying her 150 rubles with tears, for the sake of escort ladies for the Grefs and the big banker guys, for the sake of those people who eat fully during this harsh time? Questions that are still unanswered. And the time goes on, and the enemy, that is the Ukrainians, decide to increase the supply of weapons and the power of propaganda. Which is, just amazing, because that's exactly how they're fighting, and nothing's going to change. This problem is again illustrated once more by the two mayors. The Russian military does not understand what exactly they're fighting for. Quote, the problem of the servicemen's understanding of the goals and tasks of the special military operation. Judging by the speakers on TV, they seem to change from denazification and victory over NATO to the liberation of the Donetsk People's Republic. In global terms, this gives us a praise from our combat scouts. We are fighting because we are fighting, and we are being shot at. Well, state of affairs in the Russian army is really not happy. This is posted by a famous drone pilot, infamous to be precise, and the Z author of the channel Moses reports from the front. Quote, sometimes I regret that I have a heightened sense of justice and patriotism. Every day I encounter whoredom, I don't really know how to translate this, блядство, basically, and mercantile personalities among the Russian Federation armed forces. No, not everyone is a fuckwit, but unfortunately the ratio is about 50-50. Some are eager to tear the enemy to pieces, knowing in advance that there will be a bold and serious response. And in some combat chat rooms, they're also selling cars, asking for money for trophies, exchanges, etc. One side wants to find a unified solution to the whole front. The other side is trying to make money on it. And these faggots are ordinary soldiers, sergeants, and even junior officers, from whom I would love to tear off their epaulettes with shame. So, morale is improving, because they're just not doing their jobs, which is, again, great news for all of us out here. But I have to bring you this one, the last one of today, because this is in our Only in Russia section from the humor department, so to speak. Because, oh boy, this features a journalist in heavy air quotes from Komsomolskaya Pravda, the golden pen of Russia, and of course a military correspondent, if I am forced to use this term for this person, Denis Shchetsin. In his Z channel, Ruski Tarantas, Shchetsin wrote a huge text which begins with the statement that home delivery of food will lead to the decline of civilization, and ends with the fact that all these food couriers, your Uber Eats drivers, your Bolts and Volts and all these other people, are literally terrorists, and people who poisoned the salad of the company kitchen on the district are crooked morons whom Shchetsin doesn't really feel sorry for, because there had been a poisoning from the food deliveries, and he's just being outraged by this whole situation. And I'm just going to have to give you this full quote. Few people realize that the imposed need for food delivery kills the institution of the family at takeoff, and a little bit stunts the generation as a whole, deprives it of domestic skills. Guys turn out to be highly infantilized infantilists. Literally. That's how he wrote. Unable to boil a sausage, while young ladies turn to be strong and independent mistresses of a pack of cats whom they call sons and daughters. He writes with utter disgust. But not keepers of the hearth. The woman is deprived of her most important task, cooking for the family, and the kitchen and the home hearth ceases to be a sacred place. There are just empty cardboard boxes lying there with some fodder prepared by unknowing people in order to maximize the profit of the cattlemen fools. In the latest version of the cattle blocks called apartments, not even a kitchen is provided. You write down in the asset one more reason not to start a family. One more thing. Food delivery shakes out a person with average urban income. They basically takes all financial reserves from him. As a result, you get an ideal slave of the post-industrial age. He rents music, dives a car share, someone else's car, rents a concrete cattle block, and lives from paycheck to paycheck. He does not even have a dacha because he was convinced that it's necessary to rest on the sea, and preferably on his last money saved up during the year on vacation. You can do anything you want with such a passenger, and by retirement he can be utilized with the harmful fodder he consumes all his life. He would leave nothing behind, no heirs, no fortune, no artifacts of any kind. Perhaps there would be nothing terrible about it, and we would turn into beautiful Eloi sooner rather than later, except that for every Eloi there's a Morlock. That's me talking about the population pressure from the east. Let's submit such delivery costs as a bunch of obscure and disloyal foreigners snooping around the city with master keys and codes from all entrances, with square bags in which you can carry anything. The accessibility of bioterrorism has reached a new level. Salad delivery enthusiasts have suffered a little less than they did at Crocus. I don't really feel sorry for them. Clearly, they're crooked morons who can't mix a can of tuna and beans and squeeze garlic in there. It is on this generation of urban infantiles that the businesses that are the financial foundation for illegal migration are based. This is a huge amount of money redistributed in favor of outsiders who should not be here at all if we have a technocratic and pragmatic state of the 21st century. If it's a passable courtyard where the market rules, that it's normal. And this is just amazing. All of us here in the Russian development sphere, we're waiting for the development of this whole thing. This is just insane and funny, and I hope that you all know that obviously food delivery services is the mother of all evils. And yeah, this is just amazing how they can find any problem and anything that's basically helping civilization grow is a massive problem in the Russian Federation. Glorious. At any rate, nice to see you here. Thank you for listening. Please support the show. До свидания, товарищи. And as usual, remember, happiness is mandatory.